So many great comments and questions on the channel this week. The main question is on kosher foods in the 18th century. Thanks for joining us today. So right up on the top here, here's the main question. Have you ever come across any books or individual recipes from the era that happen to be specifically kosher? I would be interested if you stumbled upon some Jewish cookbooks from that time. Interesting question, and I mean, obviously there's a lot of recipes that could be made in a kosher manner in the 18th century, but the real question is, are there, and I'll take this sort of like, they don't refer to kosher things necessarily in these cookbooks, but occasionally we get a hint as to an ethnic connection in some of these recipe books. Specifically, most of the things that are happening in the 18th century that we study are English recipe books. The Hannah Glass cookbook is the one that has the most references, and so there are multiple different recipes in her cookbook that reference, and it's usually referenced in a way that says something like, here's the title of this one: To Stew Green Peas in the Jew's Way. And the recipes all have an interesting little take on them. They're obviously not sort of standard for English cookery at the time, or else she wouldn't kind of point this out. So there's definitely a cultural connection. And this peas one was really interesting. She boils up these peas for a long time and puts spices in them, the standard mace, clove, pepper, nutmeg, and then some cayenne pepper in there. And then inside of these peas go in eggs that get cooked on the top, kind of solid in it. Very interesting recipe. Maybe someday we'll have to dip into that one. There's another one that has to do with this pudding that uses calf's lungs, boiling them and chopping them up. And boy, that one, I don't know if I'm going to do one with calf's lungs. There was one about preserving fish in a Jewish manner, and this one was really interesting. Marmalade of eggs, the Jews' way. Take the yolks of 24 eggs and beat them for an hour. You got to start off with a good arm on these things. Clarify 1 pound of your best moist sugar, 4 spoonfuls of orange flower water, an ounce of blanched and pounded almonds. Stir these all together over a low charcoal fire, keeping them stirring all the while, and then they get poured into coffee cups, and then a little bit of cinnamon goes on the top. Again, really, really interesting recipes. So you definitely find some specific recipes in the English cookbooks pointed toward these particular methods. I have not run into anything like a kosher cookbook or a Jewish cookbook specifically. It might be out there. I have no idea. There's so much to learn on these kinds of topics. If anyone out there in the audience has some real specific references to 18th century recipes for kosher things, Jewish connections, I'd love to hear them down in the comment section. So make sure to chime in down there, and I'm sure a lot of people would be interested. Now I've got a bunch of little questions. Here's one from the Orange Fool. He says, can an electric stove burner provide the requisite slow heat? Yeah, it'd be so much easier. So many of these recipes, especially for something like the Orange Fool, which is a custard, it's really difficult to do it over an open fire, so it's much easier to do it on a modern electric range. So go ahead and try it. It'll be great. The mushroom ketchup episode's been getting a lot of traffic, and here's a question that comes up so often on that one, and that is, what's the shelf life of mushroom ketchup? And also the portable soup gets a lot of that same kind of question. What's the shelf life? Mushroom ketchup. You should make it, probably store it in your refrigerator. It can last for months. I don't even store it in the refrigerator. I still keep it out for months. I've never had it go bad. I don't know if you can. I don't even know if it can go bad. It's such good stuff. But yeah, I probably keep it in the refrigerator. A couple months, probably your top end on that. unless it's sealed and, canned or jarred, whatever. On the Perry Mead cider Q&A, this question is, what's the function? At the time I had on my round hat, which is hat with one side that's flipped up. What's the function of flipping the shade up on the hat like that? A lot of people chimed in the comment section answering that, and that was, it made it easier if the soldiers would have their gun, and you kind of hold your gun up right like that. It's going to hit your hat. So, see, that's why soldiers in the 18th century, even the ones that wear tricorn hats, they usually wear them cocked over one eye like that so that the gun doesn't smack into their hat. So you don't hit your hat. So here's one, the Northwest Forager. He says, I've read that a lot of modern weeds are actually at one time crops brought over by the European settlers that had eventually gone wild. Example, plantain, burdock. Do you have any references to these plants in any recipes? A lot of times these plants were pot herbs. They were just kind of tossed into a soup or whatever, and you don't necessarily see them showing up in recipes all that often. And I think they're even older than, say, 18th century, although they still come over and show up in the gardens of 18th century people, and that's why they show up in our yards or whatnot. But a lot of these were actually medicinal herbs that show up, and we definitely see some of those showing up in the herbals of the 18th century where they're talking about their medicinal uses. And that's a direct connection to next Monday's episode, where you'll get an episode that we did down at Conner Prairie, and it's all about medicinal herbs and their uses in the time period. And so we have a great time talking with the folks down there. So make sure to check out Monday's episode, which is on medicinal herbs. I got an interesting comment from somebody who uses our videos for educational purposes down in Brazil. And I want to say thanks to all those 7-year students at Maria Isabel School, wherever that is down in Brazil. Thank you so much for this great comment. Also, a quick shout out to Michael Honeycutt. Thank you so much for the great message that you sent to us on Facebook. It means a lot, and I've been passing this around. Everybody's really, thank you so much for that message. Okay, so I know this is shocking. I'm dressed in weird clothes, and you get to see the set and stuff like that. But Ryan said I had to show off one of the new t-shirts that we worked on. So here's a new Townsends t-shirt. If you're interested in helping support what we do on the channel and all the videos, this is one of the simple ways that folks can help support us. You can find these on our merch store over at our website, where our website's full of 18th and 19th century reproduction stuff, but there's this little kind of modern corner area where you can find t-shirts, and we're also working on some other little products, so make sure to check that out. Whew, back to normal. I feel better now. It's strange with a weird t-shirt on, but anyway, really amazing stuff on the channel. Folks are sharing the videos, they're commenting, they're liking the videos. I really want to thank everyone for all your amazing support, whether you support us on Patreon, and we got some new Patreon supporters. Really, thank you guys out on there on Patreon, supporting us that way. When you watch the videos, when you comment, when you like the videos, when you share the videos, those are really special ways of supporting us. So I want to thank you for everything you do, and thanks for watching today.